There would also be metabolic needs from the athlete. Some of these demands would include oxygenated blood being required by the muscles to work. We would also need to continue to pump blood around our body so that we don't experience blood pooling and struggle to return blood back to our heart. A game of football is an example of a sport that is classed as intermittent. This is because, unlike a sprint or a marathon, football involves different systems being used at different times, and athletes are never moving at the same speed throughout the whole game. A footballer would use all of the energy systems throughout a match. For example, the ATP/PC system would be used when a player is trying to sprint to try and get the ball. The LA system would be used when running to try and get the ball back from the opposition, and the aerobic system would be used when running back to your position after you've scored a goal. Due to all the systems being used, we would have many different waste products, including carbon dioxide, lactic acid, water, and ADP. When an impulse travels down the axon via bouncing between the myelin sheath in spaces called the nodes of Ranvier, it will reach the neuromuscular junction. For the impulse to travel across the junction, also known as a synapse, a neurotransmitter called ACH must be present. Once the impulse has travelled down the neurons, it will then reach the muscle fibers and ultimately start muscle contraction. Once the ACH has been used to help get the impulse across the synapse, it must be broken down and cleared so that it can be used again for the next impulse. This breakdown causes the ACH to be depleted, and the breakdown is done by an enzyme called cholinesterase. For the impulse to be passed on to the next neuron, there must be enough ACH passed onto the receptor sites of the postsynaptic neuron so that it can reach the threshold. If this threshold is not met, then the impulse will not be passed along. When the impulse reaches the muscle fiber and the process of muscle contraction begins, we reach a stage called the sliding filament theory. For the sliding filament theory to work, the two proteins covering the actin binding sites must be removed so that a cross bridge can be formed and the muscle contraction can take place. For these two proteins, called troponin and tropomyosin, to be removed, calcium ions must be introduced. The calcium ions react with the proteins, causing them to change shape and uncover the binding sites. When recovering from a football match, the duration of recovery would on average be quite long due to the duration of the game, the impact that it has on our body, and because all of our systems are being used. A footballer uses all of the energy systems throughout a match, meaning that all of the systems have to be replenished. There would be a small oxygen deficit because as a footballer, you are able to take in lots of oxygen throughout the game because of the fact that you're always stopping and starting. Both components of EPOC would be used because all the energy systems are being used throughout the game. The most dominant component would be the lactic slow component because your lactic acid and aerobic system are used more than your ATP and PC system during a game of football.